Expressions, I'm at the Rustenburg Youth Center of Excellence, and I'll be talking to young offenders to find out, are they rehabilitated? Please tell us what happened. What brought you here? What did you do outside?
I just wanted to be a commander. So because there are commanders who do things of gangsterism. So I stabbed another guy at that time, but I was in a waiting trial. So they never sentenced me about that matter that I'm in. So they sentenced me about this matter of attempted murder that I committed when I was in waiting trials. Unfortunately, I didn't kill him. For me, it was my intention because it is something, it was a mission.
Since you've been here, what has been the change?
I meet social workers, the spiritual programs, which is restorative justice. So I enter, so they help me. So I take it that opportunity and it helped me. It transformed my life. Today I know who I am. I have a vision now. I know there are some dreams that I have to fulfill it.
Gore ke tle mo toronkong ke crime ka ke mela ene se me ikemisetso gore nka etsa the crime teng ha re ntse re berekana re tla re no re ntse re le mo Spani end up gore ra chase tlamile re chase no re patelwa tla re the manene ga batle go fa share ka e feletse ka gore no o motona mo gona o batla go ntietsa ka ditlhaloga enna gore ke end up gore le nna ke kenwa ke enga enna gore ke mo ke a mo goelela da gore nne madia enna gore go ntsha thipa ro ntlhaba since ke doja e sala enna gore ke mo phamola matsogo a sala wela mo fatshe ke gona go etsa thipa mo goele ke mo tlhaba ka yona
tronko ya thusa ka sepe busitse morago gore affecta ngondo ndona tlholaganya ga ba ikone tlhaga tlhoganya ga wa bona ke tla ba thusa jalo gore ne crime ana patala.
In the programs that they attended, they are encouraged to talk about their crimes, to talk about how they feel and how they ended up committing the crime, and at the end with the aim of having them take responsibility for the crimes that they committed. And we always also take it a step further on although it's on a voluntary basis, where they participate in restorative justice programs, where the victims are called in and they have a mediation session with the offender, where they take responsibility for the actions and the crimes that they committed. They apologize, they ask for forgiveness, and in almost all cases then they receive that forgiveness from the people that they've wronged.
And on that note, we want to say hello, Dumelang, Sanbonani, South Africa. A very warm welcome to Expressions. This is definitely the place for you to air your views. I'm your host, Jacqueline Mapala.
And I'm your host, Umqolisi Wagamasango. Sizagene Bukoma from our headquarters in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. Now, do correctional services rehabilitate young offenders? Now, that is the big question. Namhlanje Kusihlwa. Join us as we spotlight this very important issue day and night.
And it's an important issue indeed, because South Africa has been grappling with the issue of crime, from stabbings in schools to various gruesome acts of violence committed by young people. Now, as Expressions, we find out what is causing young people to be so violent, and can these young offenders be rehabilitated?
Well, Jackie Njobawazi, as Expressions, we of course took to the streets just to get some answers. Please do take a look at this.
Hi Expressions, I'm Sisanda Manamatela and I'll be your street journal for the day. So today we're talking about young offenders. Are there enough measures being done to make sure that these young offenders do not repeat the same crime they have done before that landed them in prison? Do you think that enough is being done to rehabilitate young offenders?
I think they can have like community initiatives whereby they groom young men to become better persons, because obviously sometimes young offenders, it all begins from role models. They don't have people to look up to. There's no father figures in the house.
I think also in prison, there should be like initiatives that, help people groom them so that when they get out, there's already like a sense of them knowing how to act outside of the community.
They should actually try to motivate them to do something very positive, and generally that, because there's no such thing as young offenders if we're not taking like initiative in helping not to have offenders.
We're not doing enough as a country, certainly, because we're still getting a huge influx of young offenders in society.
So those were some of the comments from young people on the streets. But to help me unpack this issue and take this discussion further, I'm joined in studio by Singabako Nxumalo, who is from the Department of Correctional Services, and he is a spokesperson from there. And I'm also joined by Tsepo Sekamelo, who is an ex-offender. Gentlemen, welcome to Expressions.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
Thank you for
And of
inviting
course,
us.
I never do this by myself, and they always say the best things come in twos. My co-host Mkolisi is obviously manning our social media corner, and of course, bringing some of your comments and insights on this also important discussion that we're going to be having in studio tonight. So make sure that you go onto our social media platforms and interact with us as Expressions. I think I'm going to start with you. Singabako. I mean, we know and we heard as well from the initial insert that violence is an integral part of prison culture, whether it's young people being initiated in a violent way where they have to kill someone. We want to understand as Expressions, and I think as young people who are watching the show tonight, as to how do you as the correctional services make sure that you rehabilitate young people who come into your prison systems and make sure that they are integrated within society?
A very important subject indeed. It is quite concerning that in South Africa, the inmate population is standing at 162,000, and 104,000 of that population, it's youth, people below the ages of 35 years. That is concerning. But how do we go about it as correctional services? It all starts when a person is brought to us. This person has been sentenced, is here to serve that particular sentence. We conduct what we call is a needs-based assessment. It's done by a specialist, your social workers, psychologists, at times we even have criminologists. Because you are here, you committed murder, but we know there is more in you. That, what drove you into committing that particular offense could be multiple factors. So we need to understand that. So that assessment then guides us in formulating what you call a correctional sentence plan, which must, one, deal with the offending behavior. How do you go about correcting that offending behavior? Then once we are done with that, we then say, how do we then assist this person now? To say, when this person leaves the correctional facility, this person is now a different person. You want someone who live and go out there to be a law-abiding citizen, but also have that, a second chance to say, I've got a skill, I acquired something that I can now use it, to reintegrate back, contribute to society, and make a positive life.
Yeah. And so I want to bring you into the discussion, and I mean, I was vigorously taking notes as as you were speaking. I mean, as an ex-offender, I want to understand. I mean, were you part of some of these programs? I mean, he was talking about the correctional sentence plan. Was it effective for you? Did it make an impact? I mean, you're on the outside. Did it change your life?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. In my case, I spent 19 years in prison, and I went there when I was 19 years old. And then even when I got there, when I was new in prison, I was still, up to a lot of mischief. I took part in prison gangsterism. But I think in 2004, that's when my turnaround began. And for me, the main thing that helped me was the spiritual care programs that I got from the center. And then from there, that's where I found my purpose. And yeah, there were a lot of programs that helped me, from especially educational programs, because most of the things that I'm doing now as I'm in the outside, it's because I took advantage of the opportunities that I got from there. And also the guidance from the social workers, Yeah, there are a lot of programs that used to come. I remember we used to do things like life skills, emotional intelligence. So yeah, I think the programs there, they helped me a lot. They helped me a lot to establish me to what I've become outside. I was able to hit the ground running, work when I came here.
Yeah. So what was the reason why you were in prison?
It was murder and robbery.
Murder and robbery.
Yes.
And now that you are on the outside, maybe just give us a description or at least an understanding of what life is like for you.
Now while I'm inside. Okay, yeah, I think, everything, it depends on how you look at it as a person. Like maybe starting from when you are inside. A lot of people can see a lot of negative, but once your eyes are open, you see positive. So even like I'm here in the inside, in the outside now, I understand that being in the outside is not easy for anyone. I mean, it's not easy for even people whom we find here in the outside. So even for me, it's not easy, but I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an author, and yeah, life is exciting. And that's why I say that it's hard, but it's exciting at the same time. That's why I say that, you know, a lot of programs from the inside, they gave me a good foundation, you know, to stand on, to know what are the things that I should expect. And yeah, so nothing that I come across now, I can say that is unexpected. So I know what's my dream now. I'm working towards it. I'm trying to be positive. I'm staying as far away as possible from negative company. You understand? So most of the time, most of my days, most of my hours, I spend them, you know, working on the things that I want to achieve. So yeah, I can say in a nutshell, it's not easy, but it's exciting at the same time.
Yeah. Look, and I think, I guess maybe it's definitely something to say in terms of the correctional services within our country, to say that if we can have an amazing and positive case studies at Sebo, it says that you guys are doing something right, which I think is the positive story that we get to tell from your side as a department. And Mobogedi Kogai, I mean, maybe for you, Kogai, you're watching us. Maybe you're in prison, you're watching us, and you're saying to yourself, but Jackie, is there a light at the end of the tunnel? We want to say expressions. Yes, there is. And definitely make sure that you continue watching the show, because Mkolisi is on the flip side of this. You are watching Expressions. We'll be back right after this.
You still watching Expressions, your hashtag #1 youth current affairs show. We're talking about young offenders. We are asking you, Lapekaya, does correctional services rehabilitate young offenders? I'm now joined from the Department of Correctional Services and Justice, Osisuzodwa Khatebe, who's a psychologist there, who is an ex-offender. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks.
Sasodwa, we heard the conversations that came from that side, and we also here now trying to reflect on a criminal justice system that is clearly under pressure, where we have more inmates coming into the system than we have our resources. Our resources are shorter. The state of our South African prisons is also appalling in a way. What do you think really needs to be done?
Okay, in terms of addressing the system at the moment, it's a known factor. The correctional services are overcrowded, and the overcrowding comes with a lot of challenges, which can sometimes impact the rehabilitation of the offenders. There are many other avenues that the justice system can look into, such as the diversion, meaning that instead of sending an offender to prison, they take them to a place where they can be rehabilitated without entering the system. Or also looking into the issue of community corrections, to put people on probation rather than send them to prison.
Now, this is very interesting because as Expressions this evening, we are reflecting on rehabilitation and the importance of it. Before Ngizago, I just want to know from you, I mean, our inmates' state of mind is always of concern. And I mean, especially those that were declared state patients. When there are so many suicides in our prisons, as a psychologist, what have you been picking up on the ground?
Okay, coming to prison is a very stressful event for any person. First thing that you look at is your freedom that has been taken away. You are restricted in terms of movement, and also you are also competing for limited resources. So that impacts on the mental status of the patients. So luckily in our correctional centers, we have experts such as social workers, psychologists, and spiritual care workers, and we also have services of psychiatrists. So if you do pick up that an offender is suicidal, you are able to refer them to such experts and they're dealt with.
All right. But Mlungisi, nawe sophuma ngaphakathi. Angifuna ukwazi kuwe njengomuntu osemusha. Mhlawumbe umuntu omusha naye ubukela ekhaya njengamanje uthi mina noma ngangena ejele ngizoba right. Bazongifita, ngizophuma ngine degree mhlawumbe ku right ejele. Mhlawumbe uma ungasixoxela, mhlawumbe sithatha usibeke esithombeni ngobunzima bokuba ngaphakathi.
Ngibonga bhuti wami ukuthola leli thuba. Ngifisa ukuqala la mfowethu ukuthi ijele namhlanje abantu basadinga ukufundiswa ukuthi ijele akusiyona indawo eqeqeshelwa khona ubugebengu. Ejele uyangena ngo2 years uphuma ngo20 years. Ngenhlanhla nangebhadi ngibuya khona ejele for 10 years ngaphakathi ejele. Ngaba contracted to HIV ngayithola ngisulela ngegciwane leselela ngculaza ngezinto ezizenzayo ngaphakathi. Ijele kunazo zonke ama facilities ukuthi umuntu angaqala kabusha impilo yakhe. Inkinga bhuti wami nayo lento ukuthi ijele ngeke khona ukukusiza ungakafuna ukusizakala. Bakusiza ku decision oyithathile empilweni yakho ebese bayakhona ukukulekelela.
Well, I think before I go to the video note, Sisod, I need you to think about a question. You mentioned all these things, the systems that are put in place. I want to know from you, are they really effective? Because there are some instances where we have one psychologist servicing about 5 districts. Something clearly is wrong with our system. Are these things effective that you've mentioned? Just think about that, Mbugeli. In the meanwhile, I just need to quickly just check in Nombono Wako Lapogu WhatsApp video note. This is your expression. Please roll it.
Hi Expressions, my name is Kanye, and I don't think that the young offenders are well rehabilitated to go back to the communities. I'm saying this because the majority of them, they go back to the life of crime almost immediately after prison. And the best solution to this problem is the emphasis on the parole program, where an offender works in a community, and during the time they have to find some sort of employment which will help them financially, and that will decrease the number of young offenders.
Making a very important point there about making sure that former inmates are rehabilitated successfully into their communities, because most of the times they go back to jail. Are these systems that are put in place really effective, like honestly?
There is no system that is perfect. However, with the limited resources that we have in our facility, we make the best of them. I can say that as Uputi said, in terms of rehabilitation, it's a decision that a person takes. We can give you all the resources, but at the end of the day, the decision lies with an individual.
Indeed. But Mlungisi, wena umphakathi wakho, how have they received you, Jobo Subuyile?
Bhuti wami ngenhlanhla nangebhadi ngithema ngiphuma mina kumphakathi. Akaze ngibe naso le stigma sokuthi ngibuye ejele. Ngenhlanhla mangiphuma ngathatha isinqumo empilweni yami sokuthi ngifuna ukuba umlungisi njengegama lami. Mangiphuma yingakho namhlanje ngilungisa impilo zabantu emakhaya, emasontweni, amajele, ezikoleni, to motivate, to share, ngisebenzisa lamaphutha ami. Namhlanje ngifana ne breakdown empilweni yami ngisebenzisa ngithe ngilimela ngabuya ngizothola abanye abantu.
Okay. Bugeli now lapekaya, of course, you know the handles by now. It's expressions_10 on Twitter and it's expressions on Facebook. Let's quickly check in with what you have to say. Correctional service does not rehabilitate a person. A person rehabilitates him or herself. Finish and clap. Opa says few but many go back to their shenanigans because they're happy on the inside than they are on the outside. We have a high number of free offenders. Maybe 3-star hotel and prisons must change. Ndlandla say they only rehabilitate offenders and forget about the community, but it comes to young men offenders, they are an innovation enough. Hashtag boy child, hashtag expressions, I think, speaking about empowering the boy child. Nyundu finally says yes, they do. In my township in Nelspruit in Mpumalanga, we have a guy so young and he's out of prison doing great things with his life right now. I have to thank you so much for joining us, guys. I wish we had more time to talk. Mbugele Kubegela Pambili, and comment on our social media pages. When we come back, we continue. Remember to tell a friend that the hottest current affairs show is now showing. Siyaboy.
Welcome back. You are still watching Expressions, your number one youth current affairs show here on SABC 1. Tonight we are speaking about young offenders, and the whole question that we're asking you, Gagai, is simply this, is do correctional services rehabilitate young offenders? Now, of course, gentlemen, we have to wrap this conversation up, and I think I'm going to start with you, Singabako, around the stigma. So young offenders such as Tepo, who've come out and now they have to find jobs. I just want to find out from you, how do you help them reintegrate into the community? How do you ensure that they don't go back to the same crimes that they were, sanctioned for?
One thing which is fundamental when we talk of corrections is that it is a societal responsibility. More often people point fingers and say, hey, these people, DCS. A society has to play a role. You can see a youngster getting into all sorts of, wrong activities, and you see they keep quiet. That is not my child. That is wrong, because that child will go into prison. Then the state has a duty now to, rehabilitate that person so that, because we strongly believe as a country that there is a second chance. When a person is given a second chance, a person can do something, out of that. Hence, as a department, we don't just end there just to rehabilitate inmates, but we even work with a number of stakeholders outside. We even use some of our restorative justice programs like victim offender dialogues, where we reach out to communities. We have Izimbizo, where we engage with them to say, here's this person who left here more than 14 years ago, is coming back now, and he wants to apologize, just to remove the stigma. And we also reach out to businesses to say there is no law in South Africa which says a person with a criminal record must not be employed. That's very important.
Exactly. And I think for you, Tapa, I know there are probably a lot of offenders who are currently watching the show right now. What would you like to say to them as just an inspiration to kind of say that there is a second chance and they mustn't give up on themselves?
Okay, I'll again talk about me. Everything that I'm doing now, I started preparing myself while I was still inside. Like I have a book that I've written, and it helps you a lot, in surviving right now. Go and motivate them. I wrote it while I was inside, and the business that I have now, I have a company called Motivation Empire. I chose to be an entrepreneur. I have some qualifications I got from inside, but I don't know where they are. I've never made a CV. So I decided to go into entrepreneurship. So the thing is that you'll be fortunate if you find yourself.
Okay, so I'm going to have to cut you here.
Yes.
But I think we've got the gist of it, and I just want to thank you both, gentlemen, for coming through to the show to say that there's definitely a second chance.
Absolutely.
If you're an ex-offender, right?
Indeed.
So thank you for your insights.
Yeah, of course, Mbugeli Lapikaya, we did ask you, does correctional services rehabilitate young offenders? About 50% of you said yes, and about 50% of you said no. So 50-50, Jackie. Sibonge kakhulu for joining us now. Lapikaya, Cutting Edge is up next. And
yeah, we hope we inspired everybody, right?
Yeah, I hope so
thank
too.
you. Oh, adios, muchachos.